Hey, hey, hey. Hi, everybody. It's been a while. It's been a while since I been in podcast room. I've been working on a YouTube channel and some other things also. But I'm not going to lie. Nothing feels as good as the podcast. So I'm going with the flow. So welcome again to Aromatherapy. I'm going to check the sound a little bit once I get finished because it's a little later in the morning. I'm sitting outside, so you might hear the rain. You might hear a plane go by. Hopefully it's not too much of a distraction. But I wanted to get into this new episode. Again, welcome to Aromatherapy. It's LaWanda. This one is called How I Almost Lost My Mind. And now I know... if you got to see the preview that I posted on, I think it was Facebook, it might have, sent a message that, spoke to mental illness or mental health. And that's not necessarily the angle, although it does have its points. But this is more about how we bury our trauma and we bury the things that have harmed us, or just memories that we don't want to carry with us. The only thing about that is what I'm realizing is how many other things get buried when we try to block out certain parts of our past because of traumatic experiences we were having. So say you were in a toxic relationship from 2008 to 2010, for example, and you want to bury, a lot of the pain that came with that period of time. You might also bury other things that happened between 2008 and 2010 that didn't necessarily need to be buried, right? So this kind of came to me because, I just got back on Facebook. Well, I've probably been back on there for a couple months now, but I'll still see people or get friend requests from people who I haven't seen in years, okay? Who I haven't talked to in years, people who I haven't seen since high school, and I'm always like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that person. And I guess it's common. I've been out of Toledo now for almost 10 years, but it's different because these aren't people that I had any like traumatic instances or anything like that. What I just realized, if you were around me during a specific period of time in my life, I forgot about you. I forgot your name. And that's wild. We all laugh about, running into the person that we haven't seen since high school that we were cool with, but we can't remember their name. So we do everything we can to get around, remembering their name, but being able to move forward in the conversation. So, that happens to me. And then I have a partner who remembers everything. He remembers conversations we were having, in college in 2006. That I'm just like, how can you remember that? I wondered for the longest if, marijuana was the reason, that my memory seemed to be selective. I didn't think I was, burying as much as I probably was, but now I realize, the source of all of that. And I probably buried plenty, but for me, it wasn't, an intimate relationship or, friends. It was something a little more heavy, and then you realize if you're in a situation for, years upon years, you're burying stuff without even knowing that you're burying it. And so the concept of, me almost losing my mind simply comes from me burying traumatic experiences and not letting them get justice. This is more about, burying things that have been done to me and then allowing people to continue on in my life. You feel me? So when you get to, a point in your life where you like, I know I don't like working for other people, and I know I don't like doing this, and you can barely fucking tell your ass from a hole in the wall because you've been burying parts of your existence for a long time. So you don't know who you are. You don't know what you like. Artists call it writer's block, but I think, for the common person, it's more than that. It's an actual block that we put on ourselves when we choose to continue in relationships that are unhealthy. So in the sense of losing my mind, it's really just me losing myself, me not being able to identify what I really like, and me realizing how many relationships came into my life as a result of me burying feelings about one particular toxic relationship. It's like every relationship after that was toxic. Not all of them, but they not here now. Okay? There's a lot of people that started that ain't here right now. And it's when I started to realize that, burying pain was like a defense mechanism to stay in places that I thought I had to stay in. Ultimately, when I realized that I didn't, all of the relationships that succeeded because I'd buried those experiences, they've dissolved. Because once I, excuse me, praying for insight is yeah. You'll get information and downloads and shit that you'll be like, oh my God, how did I forget? Oh my God, how did I ever? And of course, when you're in your 20s, you think you are, you just kind of living and you're forgiving people and you think you're letting go and letting God. And it's a little more than that, because we don't understand that we're attracting what we're putting out. I was clearly putting out an energy that said, I'm going to give you more than you ever have to give me. That was my energy, flat out. Okay, so a lot of people and things that I attract were people and things that simply wanted to take and not necessarily give back. And I mean give without asking. Because if you know me, you don't really got to ask me to do. I'm going to do where I see it's necessary, okay? But you got people that will not only not offer, but getting them to give anything is like pulling teeth. And so you get to this point in your life where you you're burnt out from giving, or, something like a pandemic happens or something happens where you get sat down. Okay. And you get to go through and review what has been going on up until that point in your life and where you want to go next and how you're going to do it and who can come and who can't go. And you start kind of having this mental evaluation, and you see that the lines are blurry with a lot of your relationships because you don't have work to distract you. Okay, that's what the pandemic cleared a lot of the distractions that a lot of us had and gave us time to sit with ourselves. So during this the eclipse on the 25th, I can't tell you if it was eclipse or the full moon before it, whichever one. That was a full moon. I asked again, for, insight into my shadow side where all my stuff is buried. Y'all need to do the same. Because here's the thing, your shadow side is coming out whether you know it or not, but you might not recognize it because, a lot of it is in defense. It's a defense system, that we've created that we think is going to keep us safe. But ultimately, it don't really keep us safe, and we project our shit on other people anyway. So I promise you, you're not hiding, okay? You are not well hidden. People know what they can get from you, okay? We can't help but project what's inside of us onto the people around us. So if you think you hide in your shadow side, I can tell you, you're not. Everybody can see it, right? Now, what they do with it when they see it is, is one thing. And my shadow side revealed that you could use me. You know what I'm saying? You could use me if you were nice, if you had a smile on your face, if you know, did any little thing, you know what I'm saying? And I don't mean, okay, let me tread lightly with that use me thing, because you can't get over on me, if that makes sense. But you can, if you know that I hold you in a certain regard, you can blur my boundaries. You can push up against them and not accept them for what I, put them in place to be. And not even, care how it actually affects me, or think just because, we have a certain relationship or we're family or something like that, that my boundaries don't have the same weight. And that's not really the case, because again, when you get the insight into your memories and into the things that you've buried out of pain, you'll see that the people that press up against your boundaries now have always pressed up against them. Or you'll see why all of a sudden they're pressing up. You'll start to see their pure intention. So when you start cutting these things out, when it comes to the surface, and you start saying, okay, all of these relationships were based on a lower version of myself. The part of myself that knew how to say no, but didn't know how to say it with like compassion. I got mad. If I had to say no more than once, I don't like that shit. Like, I think when I said no the first time, that should be enough. No means no. But shit, even, we try to put that on men not knowing how to accept no, but women ain't no different. No don't mean no when somebody think they special to you. Like, but then when the shit hits the fan, who's special to anybody, really? Because at the end of the day, everybody gonna do whatever they have to do for themselves. So why compromise or sacrifice your boundaries because somebody think they special to you? So, when things are revealed and you have to make those adjustments, a lot of things will fall and a lot of people won't understand why. And I ain't gonna hold you. I ain't telling them. I've spent plenty of years talking about how I feel and being vulnerable and, being honest and truthful about myself. And, people can do what they want to do with it. But, after this past eclipse, I just, I had so many things come back to the surface, bro. Like, I can't tell y'all. And okay, I'm gonna say this real quick. I wasn't gonna say this, but I'm gonna say it. So I had a friend of mine who, sent me a friend request, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen this person in forever. And I didn't have no ill feelings towards them. No, at no part in our friendship did I have any ill feelings for them. But I was a child when we met, and they were grown. And immediately when I saw the friend request, all it brought me back to was all the men that started trying to fuck when I turned 17. All the adult men that started trying to have sex with me when I turned 17. That shit kind of blew my mind. Now, this particular person didn't know me. So they weren't, what you would consider somebody that hung around you when you was a kid and kind of, was on the weird shit. This was somebody that I met, knew, it wasn't, a situation. And then it didn't even, there was no intimacy or nothing like that. So this isn't about that particular person. But seeing that friend request and me asking the universe to give me insight into my shadow self and insight into the things that I have buried and forgotten, that triggered the memory of all of the people, all of the men who had been around me since I was a child, that as soon as I became a senior in high school, you'd have thought, and I was still a virgin, okay? You would have thought that I was like fucking, the hottest fucking, and I guess, I know now, virgins are the hottest. The fuck. And it's not, it's not for any reason other than the men thinking they done conquered some shit. That's a whole nother story. But, it just, I'm like, oh my God, yes. And then he did, and he did, and so did he. And like, oh my God, these niggas. Okay, and I forgot, like, I buried that. But you know why? Because them same men would later see me and act like nothing was wrong, that they hadn't did shit wrong. Here, let me buy you a drink. Here, let me da-da-da. And I'm like, nigga, when I was 17, you was trying to fuck. But I don't know if I ignored it. I think I looked at myself as being the type person, to this day, you didn't get it. So it didn't do shit. All it did was give me a podcast episode. Fuck. And make sure that I keep my daughter, you know what I'm saying, from around, certain type of energies. Like, nah, baby, like, flat out. Which, my mom prepared me for that too. So by the time I got, 17, almost 18, I was kind of very much aware of how all the things that men would say to get your damn draws, okay? So I was prepared. So it didn't, affect me in that particular way. So I guess that made it easier for them to, like, act like it didn't happen or act like there was nothing wrong with it. But I'm looking at it now like, no, it was very much something wrong with it. And, I wondered, what would have happened had I talked about that sooner. My mom, then be the the Louisville Slugger. Okay, my mom don't play about, certain shit. So I don't want to be the cause of, like, my mom having high blood pressure or none of that, strokes, none of that type shit. So, a lot of those things I really just kept to myself because I survived them. Nothing happened. I was given information or a person tried to, create a situation. I didn't allow it to be created. I just moved on, But then you think about, if I say this one thing, it's going to rip the family apart, right? I've had so many instances. Oh, we're just going to say that real quick. So many instances in the last 3 to 5 years that if I said one thing, it would rip the family apart, right? And I don't mean one thing. I mean, like, multiple one things. Like, I got like 5 or 6 things I could say that would, like, shred the family, right? But the fear is, if I say something then don't nobody say nothing, that shit gonna shred me. Because family's supposed to have your back. Family's supposed to look out. It ain't supposed to be, sex ain't supposed to trump shit. Money not supposed to trump shit. Marriage not supposed to trump shit. Nothing's supposed to trump the safety of children, in my opinion, right? But you see people do this shit every day. You see people pick their spouse every day. You see people pick their partner every day over their children. So it's like, okay, do I want to, like, put this big ass spotlight on myself by, exposing the truth? Or do I just want to hold the energy, you know what I'm saying, to, like, wish a nigga would? It feels safer that way. But anyway, okay. When we bury those things, we're burying parts of ourselves. We're burying the good with the bad. Okay, we're burying the good with the bad. I remember finding my senior book. Oh God, my dad, he kept whatever I kept. He kept. So I found my senior book, I don't know, probably like 5 years ago, and I just was looking through some of the comments, and I just remember there were such heartfelt messages, from, like, the band director and, like, some of my friends. And I'm like, damn, like, I forgot people felt this kind of way about me at a point. You know what I'm saying? And I immediately thought to myself, like, why would I forget? Like, how did I forget this? I know people who take their yearbooks every time they move. They know exactly where they at. They're constantly going through them. They're still in touch with a lot of people who they went to high school with and all that. But here I am, ain't seen my senior book in 10, 15 years. For what reason? And then I remember thinking, how did my dad get that book in the first place? Because I had it. And it was when I left to go to college. As a wife. And, I left some stuff in my dad's house. And even in that, that wasn't me getting married and what I went through in my marriage and the divorce and all that shit wasn't that traumatic. Like, it wasn't, I don't know if it was traumatic at all, actually. I had an experience. I learned some things. I met, two of my favorite people. So, I didn't think there was a mistake in it. You know what I'm saying? But I remember, when it was time for me to get a divorce, I was sad because, damn, here I am, 25 years old, already married and divorced. Like, what the fuck? That wasn't looking for that. But, it was what it was. So I was sad because I had been, had to get a divorce. But, the marriage and it being over and all that, I wasn't sad about that. But when I saw the book and I thought about that particular time in my life, I gained friends and lost a lot of friends really quick during college. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy how women treat you when they know the men that has either had them or the men that they want you, especially when you haven't been out there like that. You got to think, my first couple years at Tiffin, I was married, so I wasn't messing with there. I was with my ex-husband, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of other people they were sleeping with everybody. Okay, so when I get a divorce and I go back, I'm the hot commodity, bro. I didn't fucking plan on being that. I had the same relationship with those guys that I had before I left. We was cool. They fucked with me. I have a lot of integrity and people like me for that. Yeah, they probably want to fuck too, but that don't really got nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? So, I lost a lot of friends. And I think, when you lose friends in high school over guys, it's kind of, I guess it's normal, because guys is really just, looking for who they can have sex with. You feel me? So that's kind of the basics. But, in college, I guess I expected it to be different. I expected there to be more mature responses and more mature situations. But there wasn't a lot of, clarity. Women would still get mad about the same shit. Why you, well, you just, I can't help that I ain't slept with everybody up here. And now that I'm back, everybody looking like nobody slept with LaWanda. What's good? She's single. And I still wasn't on that shit. Nah, I'm cool. I really just don't like the shit where I eat, sleep, however that go. I don't want to sleep with somebody everybody done slept with. And I for sure don't want to sleep with somebody, that no, bro. I just don't be on that shit. That's a personal thing. It don't have nothing to do with them. But I think even that made them mad. Is I would be like, no, I'm not. I'm not. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, who you think you are to what? Not be sleeping around? The same motherfucker I've been. It just, I ended up burying a lot of things during that period of time, because of those type of things, but I completely forgot that the damn band director offered me a scholarship. You know what I'm saying? He randomly found out that I knew how to play the trumpet and offered me a scholarship. So when you start, thinking about who you are, what you are, in the inside and your true self, all of the good shit get buried when you bury the bad shit. So I could look back at Tiffin and be like, it was cool. It was a lot of cool people. I had a whole bunch of fun. You know what I'm saying? I was married. I got the kind of, I guess playhouse, if that's what how you want to view it. You know what I'm saying? It was college. It was away from home. I had a blast. You know what I'm saying? But, you go to college married, you graduate divorced, half your friends is gone. You just kind of be like, And it's not an intentional bury. It's just nothing to remember, really. But then when you ask for insight and things get brought up, I'm like, oh, yeah, damn, I did. Who I was did shine through, but I forgot because I buried that shit with all the bullshit that came with it. Okay, completely forgot the band director asked me, we need you. He kept, the price kept changing. Okay, price kept going up. I just didn't HBCU or nothing, okay? We marched 90s and twerk. and do precision drills. That's what I was interested in. I'm not just playing this trumpet for anything. That's how I felt. And of course, now knowing what I know now, if I would have known, then I probably definitely would have did it, went on and got school paid for, and handled my business. But I think in that moment, so much of me wasn't me. The part of me that wanted to come out, I just didn't let it. I just didn't let it because I felt like, I don't know, who knows. But that period of time, I buried the good and the bad because it just didn't seem like nothing, good came out of it. But that's just an example. When we go through periods of time and we bury the bad stuff instead of dealing with it head on, okay? Dealing with the shit head on. We bury it or we try to manipulate our way around the feelings in order to not deal with the consequences of a response. We'll bury the good with the bad. And I think for me, it wasn't that I couldn't say no, because I would say no. I would say no, but the part that I would bury was when the person tried to manipulate my no, tried to turn it into a yes, or tried to really get me to do whatever it is that they were trying to get me to do. And I would I would resent them. That's what the buried would become made of. Resentment. Me resenting people for not respecting my motherfucking boundaries, okay? If I say no, I don't want to do something, I was sure when I said it that I didn't want to do it, okay? And I'm not talking about friends. I'm not talking about, why did you want to go to the party? I'm like, I don't really know. And they're like, come on, please, we're going to have so much fun. I know we didn't have fun last time because it was a fight or they got but come on. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about friends trying to get you to have a good time. I'm not talking about that. Use your own example of the different types of you saying no and you mean it versus you saying no when you're talking to your friends and they're just simply trying to encourage you to have a good time. Okay. But the resentment would make me mad. And so now I don't know how to respond because once the resentment filled LaWanda starts talking, she's like the motherfucking bull in a china shop and don't nobody want to everybody whoa. No, don't whoa me, motherfucker. You heard me say no 3 times. Now it's whoa because I'm in this bitch pissed. Come on. And instead of, and here we go again, now that I'm thinking about it, and instead of being like, no, she right. She did say no 2 or 3 times. Y'all shouldn't have pushed her. Everybody's just like, oh my God. We just won't ask you no more. Oh, bitch, now it's that. So then it just triggered more and more negative responses to where I would just bury all of it. The resentment would be in my energy, no lie, but I just would bury the situation, the no, the yes, whoever was involved. I just would bury it. And in my mind, I thought I was letting it go. But you don't let go of when somebody fucking oversteps your boundary. You can't ignore that, act like it didn't happen. You got to deal with that shit head on. And I didn't. I just would bury it. But mind you, this is because of a different relationship that I had that required me to bury how I felt about shit, right? So in my mind, this was good practice. Yeah, I'm just going to bury it. I'm going to act like that shit didn't happen. One thing I did know is I would tell myself this. Now, I don't know how much longer we're going to be friends, though, but I'm going to act like that shit didn't just happen. You know what I'm saying? But then I'm carrying that energy around with me. You feel me? Of let's just say resentment, okay? So I'm carrying around the energy of resentment. I'm projecting that in my other relationships, good and bad. And you got people who resentment don't scare them. So now I'm attracting people who know, that they, connect with an energy that I'm putting off. But resentment, I'm not a fighter, so I'm not tearing up niggas' stuff. I'm not busting out windows. I'm not looking for girls and I don't do that kind of shit. So that's a woman that's not that type of responsive. Oh shit, men they oh shit, all I gotta do is worry about you feeling resentment. Shit, I can handle that. That's what I mean. I'm not saying that I attracted bad men, but I attracted men that didn't give a fuck about me resenting how they treated me. They don't give a fuck about that. As long as you don't tear my shit up, she's not about to embarrass me, blast me on live, and do all that shit everybody else be doing. I'm cool. They probably didn't care about that. But they knew for a fact that that just wasn't my vibe. So they didn't worry about overstepping my boundaries. They didn't worry about, some of those things. And, for a while, that was the thing. And I know people will listen to this and be like, oh my God, I never knew. It's because you wasn't paying attention. You didn't care to know. Everybody knew. Everybody knew. You don't know how I know? I got nicknames like the Firecracker, Man Eater, all of those type things, okay? So I've never been the type of person to like hide how I feel, but I've allowed people to like respond every way but the way they needed to and still have certain aspects of my energy, okay? So by the time I, graduated college and, moved back home, all I really wanted to do was, just kind of chill, relax, learn a little about myself, have some fun. But I ended up getting pregnant with Ashlyn a couple years later, and that kind of threw me head first into a situation where everybody in the family would overstep my boundaries over and over and over and over and over and fucking over again. Over and over again, bro. Over and over again. Oh my God, over and over again. Okay. One person. Two people in the family did. They were children at the beginning of it all. Okay. But everybody else, it's like, that shit just was a mess. Okay. And so I remember, but here we go again. I didn't stay in the relationship long. Fucking 4 months max. I was out and back to the crib. So it's not about, I didn't have a fear of leaving a partner or leaving a person behind or bringing none of that. That wasn't the issue. It was what would continue after, because even that boundary of we're no longer together would get stepped over. Motherfucker blow your phone up, leave you all kind of crazy messages and shit, and talk about you behind your back and all that shit. That's a person that didn't respect the fact that you broke up with them. So you got a kid involved and you don't really know how to navigate it, because I was never the person that was like, oh, I'm gonna take, I don't think kids need their daddy, so you ain't got to see him because of how he treated me. I wasn't on that shit. I wasn't on that shit. I worked very hard towards the things that I think are right. And, my daughter having her dad in her life was just right. But then I met somebody else, right? And he, and not met him because I've known him since college, right? But our relationship was reintroduced and then took a different turn. And all of a sudden, somebody who cared about me deeply was doing me how I do people, right? Because nobody else, was willing to be passionate about how much I needed to change how I was handling that situation. I don't, if all you got to do is tell me oh, they need to do this because they ain't gonna do this and this, talk. I'm not talking is cheap. I act. I like actions and I like things that require actions. Okay. So, I get my new partner and he's like, oh, hell no. Didn't they do this? Didn't you say they did this? And he's so, okay, right. So I got buried shit from there too. I think I done broke up with him. I moved back home. I ain't with him no more. I done moved on. But I forgot that I told him a lot of the things that I went through, even before me and him were together, when we were still just friends, just catching up on the last 10 years of our life. I had told him different things that had happened when I was in that relationship. So then later, a couple years later, when me and him get together, and I'm still struggling to co-parent, if that was even ever an option. He's like, didn't you say they did this? And didn't you say he did that? And I'm looking oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have told him it. Because he is about to hold me 150% accountable, because not only is he my friend, but now he my man, and he ain't the type to let no man like that. He ain't doing it. Okay? You can't just say anything to me. You can't treat me no kind of way. It's all of that shit. And I'm the same way about him. But in this situation, it was like, no. And so he made me act, in response to how, not only how I felt, but how I had been treated. Like, no, we're not acting like that didn't happen. We're not acting like, and of course there was a truth brought up to where it's like, kids this ain't healthy for her to like experience. Even though I'm trying to do the right thing and all that, it's still not a healthy situation for her to have to navigate. You feel me? Like, so, he brought up those things that I had buried, that I had forgot about, because I totally was like, that chapter of my life, oh, we could burn that. But I wasn't letting it go. It just was like buried. You know what I'm saying? And it's not me not letting go, because there was never a chance of us getting back together. It wasn't nothing like that. But, you have to act according to how people treat you. You can't just feel how they treat you. You have to act accordingly, act responsively to how a person is acting towards you. Okay? So, I just begin to change shit up. I begin to change things up, and now it's the complete opposite. I have handled it the complete opposite. I don't know what they're doing, but, that was another time where I realized, how many things I buried, because I use Facebook often, because Facebook is where, during that time I was big on Facebook. So, any place I lived, any job I worked, I was willing to be friends with those people, and I would, we'd be friends with her. So I see people from a job that I had when I lived in DC, and I'm like, oh my God, she was so nice to me. She was so sweet. This person was so nice. And I remember them taking me home, and I remember, this was going on, and, and it's like, damn, like, I don't like to like throw out the good with the bad, but that's what happens. Okay? If you don't act against the people who are trying to overstep your boundaries, then you'll bury the good with the bad too. And you'll be on the verge of losing your mind, meaning losing who you are. Who you are, what makes you feel good, what brings you pleasure. And I'm not talking about liquor and weed and vices. I'm talking about true pleasure that doesn't require you to put anything in your body other than high vibrating, energy and encounters. We are burying the good with the bad. That's why it's so hard for us to have hope, because we let people run over us and run over us and run over us over and fucking over again in the name of being family. Because that's where a lot of us see our boundaries trampled, is by family. So family ain't going nowhere. So quite naturally, they stampeding all over your boundaries all the time. Especially if the head person, whoever the head person is at a house, if they stomping all over your shit, oh, I guarantee you got some siblings and some siblings and some cousins and some aunts and uncles. They might not be stampeding, but they'll tiptoe over your shit. They'll roll over it. They'll backflip over that motherfucker like it ain't right there. Trust and believe. That's why it's so important for you to act on it on your own. Because at the end of the day, nobody can enforce your boundaries like you. You feel me? And because we're growing human beings and we have growing mindsets, when I learn something new, I might have a new boundary. It ain't my job to go, yell on the mountaintops, I have a new boundary. I no longer, I don't, for what? They don't care. But I have to be able to be in a safe space enough to where when I do talk about my new boundary, it's respected, regardless of who I'm talking to. Okay? Regardless of who I'm talking to. My boundary is my boundary, no matter what day it is or no matter what boundary it is. It's not up for discussion. Okay? We can't let people manipulate their way over our boundaries, because it's like when one person see it done, then everybody else that uses manipulation as a way to get close to people, they gonna do the same shit because of the energy you put out. All right? If you put out an energy that I can be manipulated, my boundaries can be, blurred because this person says they love me, everybody that's willing to say they love you will do the same shit. It's an energy. Okay? It's an energy. It's something that we carry in ourselves that we don't think we are carrying in ourselves. And it's you can't hide it. It's not hidden. It's not hidden. You feel me? And I know how well it can be seen based on how we dealt with that situation with my daughter's dad. When my boyfriend got to telling me like, yeah, didn't this happen? And didn't this happen? And, well, why is this so hard for you to do? I'm like, well, damn, what you mean? I thought I was the hardest motherfucker alive. But when he started telling me all the stuff I wasn't willing to do, I'm like, bitch, you pretty soft. Like, what is really going on here? And so I had to recognize, that I really wasn't, I had taken actions, but I'm not the person that wants to create conflict. But people who like conflict love that about me. Okay? But now I got somebody, conflict, please. Yes, he'll sign up. He don't care. He do not care. Anybody can get it. Everybody can get it. And I'm so thankful for that because, I needed that type of person that was 100% for me and my well-being to be saying no, because that's how I do people. That's if you think about, if you've listened to the Forgiving Myself for the Fucks I Gave podcast, I talk about, somebody no longer wanting to be friends with me because of how I talk to them. Because of how I pushed them out of their comfort zone when they would talk to me about how they was being treated at work, in their family, how they treated themselves, all of that. So now I got somebody doing the same thing to me. And I'm like, damn, I really have been like letting people like slide. Being, I don't even, being forgiving, but shit, I listen to a girl who be like, man, forgiveness is it's a joke. And it's not that it's a joke, but if you forgive somebody, but then you don't do what you're supposed to do within yourself, it's like your forgiveness really falls flat, because forgiveness is supposed to be to free you. But if you're not acting in response to a way a person treats you, whatever that means, I'm not talking about fighting, you know what I'm saying, then forgiveness not really working. If you just say the words, but you don't do anything different, then it didn't work. And forgiveness is not to like absolve the person of guilt or karma or shame. It's for you. But see, a lot of times we forgive and then we let them back in. And every time you forgive a person and let them back in, whatever karma they got coming becomes your karma. You gonna get some of that. You gonna get a little bit of the mess. So be careful with the forgiving and letting people back in. Okay? But understand that ultimately, you bury the good and the bad, because God has given us so much grace. Like, if you truly believed, right, that everything you need, God is going to provide for you, that God is always with you, that God is always looking out for you, that you're protected, you wouldn't even bury the bad, because you'd be too worried about burying some shit that you need to be grateful for. That's the problem. When we bury and don't deal with the shit, is it messes with our energy, and it messes with our ability to trust that God has really got our back, regardless of what we're going through. We too busy looking at the things as like, oh, why did this happen to me, and not looking for the lesson in it, and then being able to practice gratitude. I didn't know nothing about, okay, so when I was married, I do remember like having like praying like, okay, well, God, I don't really know if this is the marriage that I'm supposed to be in. So can you just please make sure I don't get pregnant? That was the only thing I asked for, God. Can you just make sure I don't get pregnant? I'll take care of the rest. Literally, that's what I said. I never got pregnant, never had a pregnancy scare, never missed a period, never thought I was pregnant, not one time the whole time we were together. I wasn't messing around like, God, okay, I realize I might not be on my actual path with this particular decision. So can you just make sure I don't come out of here with no kids? Because when I'm done with this, I need to be all the way done. And wish granted, that didn't stop me from getting cheated on. You feel me? That didn't stop. It ain't no telling. Because I really was not like chasing him around trying to keep up with what he was doing. But nothing bad happened to me. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because I was willing to accept that this was a situation that I had gotten myself in. And I was smart enough to know that one day I'm probably going to have to get myself out of it. But in the meantime, in between time, Lord, I just need you to make sure I don't have no babies. We not doing that. And that was that. You know what I'm saying? That was that. But that didn't stop me from burying that period of my life where I also buried God's grace. You know, that the band director offering me the scholarship and all of that in the midst of what was going on, you know, within my marriage at the time, that was God saying, baby, I still got you. Like, he ain't did nothing. You good. Here, you want this? And I said no. And I said no. Because I wasn't in receiving mode. I was in defense mode. I just stayed in defense mode. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, I'm cool. You know, how much fun am I going to have being in a band where they're saying I come from Scott High School's fantastic dancing machines. We got down. This feels like a downgrade. But in all actuality, it was God offering me like refuge amongst other like-minded people. I am a musician. I am an artist. This is what is at the core of my being, is music. And I turned down the scholarship because I was in defense mode. Because I wasn't at that time. I didn't really recognize, you know, the grace, or that it was going to be a lesson, or it was going to be something for me to later talk and teach about. I didn't know. I just was like, shit, as long as I don't get pregnant, I'm just about to go through college and we're going to see what happens. You know? But when you bury the bad, because you simply don't cut the thing off 100% and then allow your emotions to be felt, and then you can let them go, you'll bury the good with the bad, and you'll bury every good thing that God does for you along with it. So then 10 years later, you look back and be like, how did I get here? Why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? Because you was burying God's grace with the bullshit. You was burying God's blessings with the bullshit. That's why. Because you was letting people overstep your boundaries so everybody could get it. You know, everybody would be on the other side of them hands if necessary, because I don't actually know how to act against a person overstepping my boundaries. All I know how to do is feel it. There are a lot of practices that we don't know anything about when it comes time to like deal with things going on in our life. All of us are doing the exact same thing, burying the good with the bad. So it's hard for us to see past the illusion. It's hard for us to trust that God is really there, that the universe is really bringing things towards us, that everything is always in divine timing. That shit almost is like a fairy tale, because we bury the good with the bad instead of cutting the bad off at the neck and thanking God that we were able to and going on about our business. How I almost lost my mind was burying the good with the bad. So much so that when it was time for all of that shit to come back to the surface, I had to spend months picking through what was mine and what wasn't. Months. Thank God for giving me months to pick through the good and the bad to figure out what was actually Lawanda's. Is that what you really like? Or do you even know what you like? Do you even know if that's how you like to dress? Do you even know if this is okay, so sit with that and figure out who you are. Find out who you are. I can't tell you how long it's been. I don't even remember if I've ever been myself. Like, I was always somebody else's versions of me. We are always other people's versions of us if we are not careful. And it starts with our parents. Always. And that's not about it being a good or a bad thing, but parents raise you, they want you to go to school, they want you to have an education, they want you to be safe. Ultimately, your parents are doing and saying things that they hope will help save you and prosper you when you become an adult and they transition. They really just be trying to prepare us, right? But what that looks like and how that come across and all the shit they do, that just varies from 0 to 1,000,000 on the scale of right and wrong. But ultimately, everybody wasn't given the opportunity to flourish as themselves. You get to talking about single parent households and how the oldest becomes responsible for the siblings. How the fuck is that who I'm supposed to be? You feel me? Now, yes, it's going to teach me responsibility. I'm probably going to learn how to cook a lot earlier. I'm going to learn different things around the house about responsibility. And I might learn this language and the language of adults, because that's what happens. When you were 15, 14, 16-year-old at home and you taking care of your siblings, you're learning the language of grown-ups because you're in the position of an adult. So who I was supposed to be at 15, 16, I couldn't tell you. Thank God again, though, for the fantastic dancing machine. So I knew for a fact that that's where I was supposed to be. And nobody interfered with that. So that was grace for me. You know what I'm saying? But think about how many single parent households there are. Think about how many households that I talked about this in the last podcast with Moana and Encanto and Coco about the generational curses. When your grandparents are alive and your great grandparents, their words are still trickled down. What do great granny know about the internet? What great granny know about YouTube University? Nothing. Now, as ancestors, it's different, okay? But here on earth, they ain't halfway kept up with technology, okay? So why are we letting people that don't have the same information control us? We can't. It's not about respect or disrespect. It's about the truth. And the truth is, nobody knows you better than you. Nobody knows what kind of information you got at your fingertips. Nobody knows, in your soul, the things that make you happy, the things that bring you pleasure. So it's very important to act accordingly when people overstep your boundaries, or you're going to lose your mind. You're going to lose your ability to determine who you really are. You're just going to be whatever version the people that you got in your life want you to be at any minute, which means you're going to always be changing, because your kids need you to be one way, your man or your woman needs you to be another way, your parents need you to fucking always be respectful, your siblings need you to be responsible, your motherfucking, you feel me? Like, everybody needs something different from you. What you need from you? Do you know? Because if you don't, you're probably on your way to losing your mind too. So I would suggest, okay, finding out who you are, digging through the closet, the bones, letting them all out, and I want to shout out to all of the supportive partners that's about to let their divine partner discover who they really are. I see a lot of people, and I ain't gonna name names, but I got like some friends from high school, and I watched them, and they, I don't get all caught up in like relationship goals and shit like that, but I see that some of my friends from high school are genuinely happy with their partners, and I'm so thankful for that, because I've watched like some of the women go from having a career doing this to not doing that, and now they're doing something completely different, and they still married, they still smiling, their men are supporting them becoming the women that they want to be. Y'all don't even know, I'm so grateful for that for y'all. I really want to name somebody in particular. I love her, but I'm not. But I'm just so grateful, for our ability to change within relationships and not lose our partners. I feel like our generation is basing our relationships off of, it's different now. We're not basing our shit off of the way our parents based their relationships. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're doing it with more information, and we're using information, and we're allowing the continued information to allow us to change whenever we decide, okay, I want to do this now. It's almost like everybody can be creative. Well, we all know we all got talents and gifts. So yeah, quite naturally, we're all artists. We're all creatives. We all have an imagination. We all can create whatever future and lifestyle we want. Just be sure that the one you creating is your version of it and not nothing nobody else. I mean, you can take bits and pieces of things you learn from people to help, bake your cake. But ultimately, you need to be deciding what feeds your soul. You wanna know what feeds my soul? And I'm gonna let y'all go. Let me sip my coffee real quick. Other than sending people's projected energies back to them, that feeds my soul. Knowing that a motherfucker can say something about me and I'll be like, nope, Lord, send all that energy back to them. I don't want that. That shit don't got nothing to do with me. They mine. Make sure all energies is where they supposed to be. I don't want nobody shit over here that ain't supposed to be over here. That feeds my soul. Knowing that I can ask God directly to give people back what they're trying to put on me. Lord, give it to them. That ain't mine. Well, what she thinks she doing? Keep all that spell shit, okay? Enjoy sending people's energy back to them. But what feeds my soul? Land, a brick house, a garden, a old school bus that came with the property that can be gutted out and turned into some boho style lap of luxury for me to go and just lay and smoke and grow plants and meditate and do my work. Peace and quiet, being out in nature, being somewhere by a fresh stream of water. That's what feeds my soul. Flat out. And I ain't gonna hold you. I've always known that. We moved around a couple times as kids, so I got to see different versions of like a home living. And we moved to a house that was like 3 acres off the street with a pool in the back in the middle of a city, only to find out that there were only 3 properties in the entire city that had that, and then only one had a pool, and we had it. So we had a one-of-a-kind location in Toledo. That tells me that I can get a one-of-a-kind location wherever the hell I'm at. So why give up pieces of myself because the world is telling me something different? Fuck that. Don't let the world tell you who you are. You tell you who you are. You tell you who you are, what you like, what you love, and what brings you pleasure. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Okay? Don't lose your mind trying to be whatever people need you to be in the moment. You have everything you need to be yourself all the time. The right people will come and you will never have to change who you are. You'll never have to change who you are or who you are becoming. You won't have to change. The right people will come. And if it's time for them to go at some point, they'll go. But you won't have to change because you'll be being true to yourself, which means you'll be attracting everything that's for you. You'll be manifesting everything that's for you. And they won't be able to deny that whatever you're doing for your life works. It'll be obvious because of the actions you're taking. Okay? So we've all buried the good with the bad. It's time to unearth that shit. So you can remember all of God's grace, all of the divine timings that have happened, all the times that God has allowed you to win when you thought all you were doing was losing. Ask for insight. We got another, full moon coming up. We got another new moon, something coming. Ask. Ask to unearth all that is buried so you can let go of all the people, places, and things that you buried with the good. And you can remember the good and all the times God has given grace and blessed you regardless of what you thought and regardless of what was going on in the world, so that you can get your mind back and so that you can teach your kids how not to lose their minds. Alrighty. I love y'all. That's it for today. I'll be back to see you soon. Peace. Come holler at me on YouTube. Got the channel up, A Room of Therapy, no underscore 1111. Okay, A Room of Therapy 1111 on YouTube. Make sure you leave me a comment. Thumbs up. Love you. Bye.